Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am so excited because in 2024, I am revamping my indie author behind the scenes playlist. And I got this request from one of my viewers and felt woefully underqualified with my account. As much as I love you guys and all the support you've given me, about how to be a booktuber, the first indie author who came to mind, who has a sensational Booktube, was Madam Crystal Butterfly. So thank you, Madam, for joining us. It is such an honor to have you on.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be selected as the one you want to talk to about this subject.
I know when I first messaged you, I was a little nervous because I was like, I know this could be sort of a private topic, asking somebody like, how do you be a booktuber? But with so many new authors and new readers coming up this year, I felt like it's just such a good time to talk about what it is really like if you take off the smoke and flashy lights and mirrors of booktubing. So Madam Crystal Butterfly has over 5,000 YouTube subscribers, and the link to her YouTube is in the description box, so go follow her if you have not already. But in addition to talking a little bit about the writing process, you really have leaned into Booktube as far as reading and reviewing under other indie authors' books. You've taken your own spin on it, giving them butterflies instead of the traditional star ratings, and you've got such a unique insight. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you ended up launching your channel?
Well, when I launched my channel, it was originally because when I started on social media, my cousin was saying, "Oh, you should have a YouTube page." But I was nervous to do that because back in the day, I'm old enough to be back when MySpace was the king and Facebook. This was when Facebook was about to take out MySpace. And everybody was like, oh, be careful with social media. So I was always nervous about it. So I was just getting started trying to post things about my books on Facebook. But Facebook, if I'm being honest, isn't always the best medium for trying to build attention to your book so much as it's good for finding other authors to connect with and be able to find good author groups to help you learn things. But I was trying to find other ways to better promote myself. And my cousin was like, oh, you should have a YouTube channel. And I was nervous at first, but then I was thinking, why don't I start? Because I saw other authors on YouTube. So I went on and I started out with an AuthorTube channel, which is why my earlier videos are all writing advice. But as I was working with AuthorTube, I was getting a little tired of it because I don't like the fact if you look on AuthorTube for writing advice, you're more likely to bump into hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And I had hit the phase where I was doing more serious research to give people actual information. And it was getting to the point where it was eating up more time than it takes me on Booktube to talk about a book than anything. And I was just getting tired of always having to do a lot of research every day to tell people more about how to become a successful author, especially when it was in the phase where I was even still early phases of me pushing myself up. And I was thinking, it'd be a lot better if I was a booktuber versus an author tuber. And so I decided to put my writing tips portion on hold. I may go back to that one day if I feel like I'm in the mood to do so, but right now I'm not because it was so much work. And I decided, okay, I'm going to get on Booktube. And when I started reviewing books on Booktube, I'm not saying all mainstream authors are bad, but I was getting tired of reviewing. Everybody said, oh, go read Twilight, which I have not done because I watched the first movie and my friend and I could not get into it. But they're like, read Twilight. Why? Because we don't like it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to read a book just to complain about it. I want to give it a chance. And I noticed everybody was doing the same thing. And then I was thinking, why don't I just review other indie authors like me? Because I would not only just be bringing something more interesting to people, something they didn't really hear about, but also I would be helping out my fellow indie authors. So I decided, why don't I build it up that way? I can promote my books and I can promote their books at the same time.
And that's a great point. And I know in the last year, there has been such an uptick in debates about reviewing fellow indie authors' books as an author yourself. I know this is something that really weighed heavily on me too at the end of 2023. So, when you're looking as an author and not just a reader who loves to read and therefore you have no stake in the game, how do you suggest navigating whether or not including reviews of peers is a good move for your channel?
I would say that's going to depend on you and whether or not you feel like if you feel like you can give your peers an honest score and not worry about it, then go ahead. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest, it really doesn't matter what you say about the book. It matters that you talked about the book because you
Mm.
put the book in people's heads and people's mindset. Like I could go on a tirade. Like one book I reviewed was called The Mister. I
Mhm.
wasn't a big fan of that book, and I
Mhm.
reviewed it and I said, I'm not a big fan of this, but that was, I think you heard about it, from by E.L. James. Everybody was complaining about it after I found out I did my review. Everybody was complaining about it. But the thing is, the more you talk about it, then other people are going to be like, well, you said the book was bad, but how do I know it's bad? Why don't I
Mm.
look at it? And the
Mhm.
thing is, you get really, I think a lot of people get scared because you're scoring the book, but the truth is, it doesn't matter what you say. If somebody wants to be petty, let them be petty. When you're
Mm.
an author in general and you write a book, you have to be prepared for people to score you however they're going to score you. And remember, that's just their opinion of it. And other people may have a completely different opinion. The point of even having video reviews to begin with is so someone will talk about your book and plant it in people's minds.
Mm. That's great. And so if someone's watching who's a reader more than a writer and they're wondering if their voice matters, if they're actually doing any good by reviewing, you would definitely say yes, that it definitely matters, even if that opinion is contrary to what a lot of people are saying, or if you love a book that everybody else seems to hate.
Yeah, because there's this guy on YouTube. His name is Dominic Noble. He's one of the
Mm-hmm.
big time YouTubers. He was talking about a book, I believe it's called Dave the Pig or something. He was saying repeatedly, do not read this book. He didn't say what it was about, but he said, don't read it, don't read it, don't read it. And then I was like, I should read it. Because you keep telling me not to. Now I want to read it. I read it. It was awful. But if he hadn't told me to not read it 15 times, I wouldn't have read it. So you have to take the fact that if they say anything about your book in general, what happens is you pique someone's interest.
Mm-hmm. So I know you and I were talking before we went live about how Booktube has changed, how YouTube in general has changed, and will continue to change. Social media changes year after year. If someone was going to try to start a Booktube channel where they read books, they review books, they talk about their TBR list, they talk about their love for certain genres, what are some tips that you would give them starting out in 2024?
One, exercise some extreme patience because it takes a minute and you're going to have to think about how you want to do this. Like when I started out, I was just basically practicing to figure out what worked for me on YouTube and what did not work for me. And once you get your flow of how you want to manage your videos and how you want to really do your style, you need to think about, well, how is this affecting my schedule? Is this, if I do it this way, will it overwhelm me? What's the best way to approach it for me so that I don't get myself stressed out over posting these videos? Because you need to remember, if you're reviewing books, especially indie author books, don't stress yourself about getting it out by a certain date. The indie authors, unlike the algorithm, will be nicer to you, and letting the algorithm stress you out is not worth it. It's just not
Mm.
worth the headache, and it's not worth the sickness. And you also need to be willing to do a little bit more advertisement offline, because one thing that really helped my channel a lot is I printed out different flyers about my
Mm.
stuff, about my website, and I go to events to pass out flyers. And people say that, oh, everything's online. In-person stuff is not dead, and I have learned it's extremely effective to get people to give your YouTube channel more of a chance, because YouTube shows your videos to people, but a lot of
Mm.
times, even though it's trying to hit the people who would be your targets, because it's looking to cater to the viewer. And even if
Mhm.
it sends them their way, it may be someone who likes that stuff, but they're interested differently towards it. Like they may have watched a few booktube videos, but they're more interested in watching video games or cooking or how-to stuff. And they're not
Mhm.
paying that close attention to it. You may
Mhm.
find more success if you go to events where the readers are and say, "Hi, I'm a booktuber on YouTube. I have some great recommendations. Check out my channel," because you'll have a higher chance of that person going, "Oh, well, I need something to read. Let me watch them for recommendations."
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. And I think one of the questions that I always had in the back of my mind, and I talked about before we went live, that my motivation for doing a channel, which was originally AuthorTube, but it was just to share a raw, real, open view of what publishing as an indie author is like, because I just couldn't find real people talking about the pros and cons. It was like, oh, here's all this stuff. I dig down deep and research. Here's how you do a book, but where are the real people talking about it? And so when I started veering into the booktube side, it was sort of on accident. And it's just been blown away connecting with other authors. But do you feel like if you're coming in new in 2024 that you have to have a brand already, that you have to have, authority in order to start? Is this something that anybody you think can just jump into?
I think anybody can still jump into it by the way the platform is designed, because even though YouTube's more corporate now, most people are just logging in to watch the campy homemade videos. That's what draws to the platform to begin with. And I think it's still what draws people. And to be honest, you can just have your tripod and a cell phone and film the video any way you want to do it. As long as you practice with it and see what you want to do, I think inevitably you'll gain your audience. But if you're get all caught up in trying to copy what everybody else is trying to do, then you're just gonna be boring to people because they've seen it 50 times. You need to focus on being uniquely you and what you want to bring to the table, and not try to copy everybody else.
I love that. And I think that ties in well. So we know you as Madame Crystal Butterfly, your
Mhm.
beautiful masks, your gorgeous butterfly reviews.
Thank
Did
you.
that take like a lot of planning in advance for how you wanted to present yourself? Is this just naturally, as you were saying, just part of who you are anyway, and you just leaned into that?
Well, originally when I started, I didn't have mask. I started with the pen name because my mother, actually, when we were watching a show at random, she was like, "Oh, you should have a pen name." And I was thinking, you know what? I should, but I should have a unique pen name, something people will remember if they hear it. And the pen name came before the YouTube channel, but even with the YouTube channel, originally I didn't have a mask. I was practicing different things. I was working with different styles. And later, when I was changing up my format, the mask came because I'm thinking, okay, I'm supposed to be presenting the magical world of books. Shouldn't I be
Mm,
delving my audience into more of a magical world? And the mask went more with the theming of that. So I
mm,
worked with that as a theme. And then I keep introducing new things as themes. Like, I'm messing with different stuff even now because I'm thinking, okay, how do I want to theme this? What's the best way to say this is going to be fun and make the videos more exciting?
mm. Yeah.
And I just keep working with my craft. And that's what I mean. Just like even with you all the time, just keep working on what your craft is, what you feel you need to change, what you need to need to work on, what you like to keep, but also something you really should utilize. And I'm saying this before I forget it. Utilize when you get to a point where you can have the use the community tab. Trust me, you're going to want to use that a lot, because that will let you know what works and doesn't work. Because I use it to test my thumbnails. I use it to test
Oh.
what I should title my videos. Because if you do that with your audience, not only are they getting more engaged because they feel like they're more of a part of it, but they
Mhm.
connect with you more and they start to tune in with you a bit more because this is what they want to see.
Mhm. That is a great idea, and I just discovered the community tab in, like, November, and was going, "Where has this been all of this time?" Because there's also the ability to put polls up in there and see which of your series readers are enjoying the most outside of the algorithms. Because algorithms can be tricky. Nobody told me I
Yeah.
was gonna have to know techie stuff to publish books and talk about books, and so it can be a huge learning curve. But when it comes to algorithms and a beginner YouTuber, I know that getting that first 200 subscriber goal is huge for a lot of booktubers starting out. And I've heard people say that it can take just as long to get 200 as it then takes to get 1,000 in just the same amount of time. Um, you mentioned earlier not going after the algorithm, letting yourself be yourself, letting your channel unfold. but still being proactive and going in person and talking about your booktube channel and getting people to follow you and to watch. um, do you feel like there's any specific tips for getting those first couple hundred subscribers, getting your channel rolling?
Well, I use the TubeBuddy app. Well, the thing they recommend the second you get a YouTube account called TubeBuddy. I use that to work with my SEO, and I use the features because that does help to a degree. And
Mm,
watching certain videos, like do your basic YouTube research in the sense of there are channels that talk about it,
mm,
how what's changing with YouTube. Like I told you earlier, I'm doing research now to see what's changing with YouTube. But don't just watch their videos in general, watch their more updated and recent videos, because these channels are always updating, because YouTube is always updating, and they're trying to help us get an idea of how on earth this stuff works. So
mhm,
on the
mhm.
technical side, I would watch, you can watch the TubeBuddy channel, and there's also one called, I believe, vidIQ,
Okay.
that I watch, and they have helped me with certain things because they're the ones who told me, hey, utilize your community tab and other information that I have found very useful. But they were even saying always watch our updated videos, because we have other videos, but that's some of that is very old advice, and you have to remember this platform is always changing.
Mm, mhm,
So when it comes to the algorithm itself, you may want to do that to help give you a better ability to aim your videos more towards your audience. I would say do that in addition to going to in-person events. Like if there's a chance for you to go to even a YouTuber's convention or a book convention or something, then go and introduce yourself that way. On YouTube itself, play around with the different features, and you'll be able to probably figure something out. I can't really give everybody a set thing that will absolutely work, because with YouTube, this is always changing, because I don't want to tell you, oh, do this, and this. Absolutely, it
mhm.
will work. It may
Oh,
work for
yeah.
some people, and it may not work for some people. And that's the real problem, because I remember there was a time if we put hashtags on our videos, it would work. Now that is not one of the more effective
Mhm,
things to do. And then we hear, oh, add this, that, and the other thing to your video, it will help. There was a time it would, but now it will not. So we're dealing with something that is constantly evolving. So I would just say check those channels out, because they can give you an idea of how to manage dealing with the algorithm. But your best bet is doing in-person events, because I've learned from doing those. Because when I did that, that's when my subscribers and everything else starts to help out a lot. And also, I'm saying watch things like that, watch people who give advice with that, but be careful of people who tell you to do things like sub for a sub. That is not reliable, and you will lose your channel for no reason trying to do that.
mm.
And also, Fiverr sells this thing where they say they advertise your YouTube channel. Do not waste your money with
Mhm,
that. I know you believe you're not breaking the rules, and technically you're not breaking the rules, and you're getting advertisement. What they do is they'll pull in subscribers, but they won't pull in people who will watch you.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
better to do more in-person events and mess with different channels giving advice, ones you deem reliable, like the ones I found that I deem more reliable, and to go mostly to in-person events, because like I said, the old ways are not dead. And if just shake a few hands, say, hey, I got some books and stuff you may find interesting. And most importantly, I almost forgot the most important rule also, is the way you and I are talking right now, because we connected, that helps bring more people to our channels, because I'm going to tell my audience after I'm done making this video clip that, hey, you should check out Catherine's channel, the same way you're telling people, hey, check out Madam's channel. It's good
Mhm,
to connect more people with Booktube, because I will be honest, people, other fellow Booktubers, if you get the chance to meet them, and that's another reason to go to in-person events, if you can even find an event with other Booktubers, because it will be the Booktubers who at least try to help you and shout you out the most.
mhm. And that's a really great point about just viewers for viewers' sake isn't enough. It's not what you want. You want people who are actually there because they want to watch your content. If you have 1,000 subscribers and nobody's watching, then that 1,000 subscribers isn't enough to monetize your account if that's what you're aiming for with a booktube. Because counts subscribers plus watch hours, or watch hours plus subscribers. You can't have, 50 regular subscribers that watch everything and still get monetized that way either. So you've got to have that mix of both. And just like with a book review, if you're an author considering Booktube, if you give your free book out to 1,000 people, but it's a wide audience that doesn't necessarily read your niche, you could be giving books away to people who will never read it, versus taking the time to find 1,000 readers in your niche who will then read it, review it, enjoy it. So yeah, it's the same approach with that. I didn't even think about the fact people could go try to buy subscribers, but yeah.
Well, the point of it is they tell you you're not buying subscribers. They tell you you're just advertising your channel. And some of them get, well, a lot of them, they get these high reviews, because when I was new, I looked at it. Some people said, don't do it. Other people said, do it. And then I found out later what they do is, like, you'll be advertised to people in Russia. And they'll watch your video and subscribe to you because they're trying to learn English, but they're not going to watch you later. And it doesn't really help you grow or get more of the audience you want, because you're being advertised to people who, yeah, they checked you out once. They might have liked your video because, it looked interesting, but they're not really invested in it. And these people will say, like, when I was even looking at things, they say, oh, we'll advertise you and we'll help you get all these subscribers and stuff. And I learned from this stuff, because it's when I was doing my research early days, they will help you get subscribers. That will happen. And it will be technically legitimate subscribers, because all they're doing is advertising you on their social media and bringing in people to look. But they're not going to bring in the people who will stay and watch you. Who they're bringing in is just people who will subscribe to you really quick because they advertise to you, and then they'll never watch you again. Yeah. So it's not even worth throwing away your money on that. And I'm bringing it up because Fiverr advertises this all the time, and I'm just bringing it up as a warning.
Yeah. And I think networking is one of the best ways, because really you've got somebody else's really engaged viewers who are now meeting somebody else that they also value, and then they're becoming your engaged viewers, and that's how the Booktube community grows organically. But once you've got a Booktube channel and you've got your first couple hundred subscribers, if you're not getting the views on the series that you're working, how do you know when it's time to shift your approach, shift your thumbnails, shift whatever it is? Is there like a point where you go, okay, this just isn't working anymore, and now I know I need to change?
Well, like I said, I was able to figure out a lot of this utilizing my community tab. By utilizing that, and I would put polls up, because when I did my first poll, I was scared because I thought nobody would click on this. A bunch of people clicked on it. And they voted and told me what they want to see and what they don't want. Because even with YouTube constantly changing, one thing I have learned is that community tab will give you the biggest really hint at what direction to take your channel in, because you have more access to what people want. And then also, I know we have mixed feelings about it, but to a degree, we are going to want to utilize things like AI. Like, I used AI to come up with a few names for videos. And I put it to a vote, and I was able to come up with better names because I was having difficulty naming the videos. And I put it to a vote, had people vote on it, and they told me which ones worked, which ones names they weren't that fond of. So I would say utilize AI to a certain degree, not for everything, because YouTube's apparently going crazy about that at the same time as encouraging people to use it.
Well, YouTube's got their own sort of built in, because I don't know what it would be if it wasn't AI, where you start to type a title and it's like smart suggestion from YouTube even, and they're like, here's some alternative ways to word this. And sometimes they're just super simple shifts. But titles and thumbnails are both the bane of my existence. I never want to sound clickbaity on my channel. I just want to be very straightforward. Here's what this is. Here's what's going on with this. But I've also seen booktubers go on and be like, what's the top 5 booktube Google searches? And I'm going to, make a video and stick that title on it.
When I was doing my research, videos that outflanked mine were all labeled stuff like that. And I was just thinking, you know what? People are going to get tired of the clickbait because they're not going to get what they want.
Yeah. And then the last question I have is about consistency. And while we don't want to be really serving the algorithm, giving away all of our time we need for self care and things like that, is there a frequency as of the beginning of 2024 that you feel like a new booktuber may need to plan on? Like, give your viewers a sort of a promise that you're going to give them something new every week, twice a week, so that they have a reason to subscribe or come back?
For the most part, can't tell you yes or no on that because people's schedules shift, things can get a little crazy. And even with my book reviews, I was plotting to do 4 books this month and my schedule got crazy this month. So I'm going to be doing one book review actually tomorrow about The Mango Lion. The mango has fallen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be posting that tomorrow at 3:30. But in general, when you make these promises to your audience, also, if something goes crazy, don't feel scared like you failed. Just post a little, maybe mini video or a short saying, listen, things got a little crazy, so I'm going to have to move the date to this. But do not stress yourself out, always trying to make yourself adhere to a certain date. If you know you won't be able to make that video by that date, then do not force yourself. Just tell people that, hey, it's not going to work out and I'm just moving this to this, or certain things in my schedule got crazy. You can say that you'll do it by a certain date, and if that works for you, go ahead and continue to do it. But if something just interrupts your schedule, just say, hey, people, I have to pause it. Because I remember there was a book I had to review called The Blood Inside Me, and I could not get it done in time because I was having a few filming issues because my god sister came over with my new nephew, and he's almost 1 year old and I hadn't seen him yet, so I was more determined to play with the baby than I was to finish the video. So all I did was I got my phone camera out and I filmed my desktop and said, listen, I know I said I was going to have this book review done by this date, but my nephew came over and I couldn't watch him and film the review at the same time. So I have to push the date back. And I'm just mostly saying this because I know what trying to adhere to a YouTube schedule can do to a person when they overstress themselves out. When I very first got on the platform, my friend one time had to talk to me because I was making myself sick trying to adhere to the schedules. And I realized, listen, people are, unlike the algorithm, people are forgiving and will understand that, hey, this is this person's life. People will give me a break. Even when the algorithm does not want to, people will give me a break. So if I post a quick little 1 minute or tiny video saying, hey, this isn't going to work out, I have to move this, or go on the community tab and post, hey, I have to move the date, then it works for you. But always just if you decide that, hey, I want to post weekly or I want to post once a month, figure out the schedule that first works for you. And then say, okay, this weekly thing works for me. Good. But if anything interrupts it, just say, listen, people, I know I said I was going to have it by this a particular date. It's coming, but I need some breathing room, or I have to cancel something. I will try to bring it back later, but just play in on that. As long as you make a short little video, you not only appease the algorithm, but you also make it so your audience is fully aware of what's going on so they don't get frustrated with you.
Yeah, communication. Communication is key, to be sure. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about Booktube and just being so open and honest about your experience and encouraging, because it sounds like this really is a good year to try. It may be a different year than when you and I started a couple of years ago, but sounds like it's a good year for new people to jump in, see if it's a good fit for them. It's still free too, I think, to sign up for YouTube, start your channel, start
Oh,
talking
if they
about
start
people's
charging folks,
books.
we're bailing. We'll
Yeah.
go to TikTok. I've been doing both lately, but if they start charging us to post videos on here, I'm going full time on TikTok.
Oh, but seriously, thank you, madam. I really appreciate it. It's always such
No
a pleasure
problem.
having you on.
Okay, it's always great to be here. This is always so much fun.
Yes. And if you're wondering what Madam writes different types of fairy tale retellings and
Yeah, I have a couple of them
romance
right here. I have
stories.
Curse of the Frog Prince parts 1 and 2. And I have my book Violet Evergreen in the Seeds. Am I holding this upside down? Yes, I am. Seeds of Rebellion, along with my latest book, Realms the Hidden Fairy. And be on the lookout because in a few months I will be finished with my book, Wedded Bliss, which is a vampire story. Yeah, I'm working on getting in that vampire space.
Oh, that's awesome. I've got the link to Madam's books in the description box, Madam's YouTube in the description box. Please give Madam a follow. I have picked up several books that I would never have found because of book reviews on Madam's channel. And so thank you for all you do for the indie community.
Thank you. I'm really grateful you invited me on.
My pleasure. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching the replay and you have questions, I can send your questions to Madam Crystal Butterfly, or you can go on Madam's channel or socials and message her yourself. But we have more indie author behind the scenes videos coming over the next few months. We have things from dabbling into ghostwriting. If you're an author who's ever considered ghostwriting, we have David Green coming on to talk about that. We've got some other cool videos coming up. And next week, Montrez is our featured author of the week. And Montrez is going to come on and talk about all things bookish and book club-ish. So definitely subscribe to catch that. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.